there's so much conversation going on about how Black women are masculine, but it reminds me of an African proverb, which is, the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
Don't you see what's happening? Women are becoming more masculine while men are becoming more feminine.
Women are becoming more masculine now. The way they walk, the way they dress, the way they talk.
Let's have your amazing viewer. It's another interesting moment. I'm so glad that you stopped by. If this is your first time here, kindly like the video. Don't forget to leave me your subscription. Don't forget to share the video. Turn on the bell so that you get notified whenever I have a new video. I appreciate your love and support for my content. Without further ado, let's dive into today's video. We'll be looking at this modern day issue. You know, there's so many issues that are at rise in this modern world, where also men are also raising complaints of women who are becoming more masculine rather than feminine. So this topic is so much at rise in the Black community, and so many men, the majority of men, are looking for that traditional woman, but they're nowhere to be found. You know, women are out there. Women are doing everything. Could this be the reason why there's so many cases of single parenting in the Black community? Or I'm just saying that this is just in the Black community, but more specifically in this video we'll be focusing on the Black community, because it's really so much at rise in the Black community. I'm sorry to say, it might be indulging to you if you're an African, if you are, but that's it. It's so much at rise in our community, and we have to address this. And yeah, what could be the reason? Why do women find themselves in this space where they have to operate in masculinity rather than being that queen, angel, whatever you can number, this feminine person they can be? Why, and what's pushes them into that? We'll be interacting with some of the stitches that are put together from TikTok, and don't hesitate to leave me your thoughts as we interact. Continue on.
I've been asking myself that for years, because whenever people say words like rich, silky, smooth, dainty, angelic, warm, Black girls usually come to mind. Those are usually adjectives given to Black girls. But there's a still association between us and masculinity, and I think I know why. For one, I think it's the association between like good and bad, light and dark, femme and masc, and because we are darker skinned, we tend to be masculine because of that association. Untrue, just like things people think of. Two, it's the association between masculinity and African facial features. Like having more prominent, dominant facial features tends to be associated with men as opposed to women, European beauty standards. But three, and most under-recognized, is because we do so much labor. When white girls talk about like fighting for the right to work, they're not talking about us. We've been working the whole time. Society has associated masculinity with working, while also making Black women work their finger to the bone for generations.
And I'm telling you, Black men are responsible for her being masculine because we have not helped her raise them children.
I am
and
not.
when I say help them raise them children, I don't mean you as the stepdad.
No,
I mean you as an active member in the community. She got masculine because she had to become masculine in order to deal with the rape, the abuse, the domestic violence, the disappointments that men had in her life, and also raising those kids and having to take care of herself all at the same time. The Black woman has been the be all in all in our community for half of a century, and now we want to turn around and say because she didn't do it perfectly enough or remain feminine enough when she had to absorb our responsibilities plus her own, that's insensitive and disingenuous.
Women are becoming more masculine while men are becoming more feminine. I observed so much men sitting at home not doing shit while their woman is out working getting the bag. Then you wonder why she's cheating on you. You put her in a masculine role. Then you wonder why a lot of women is telling their daughters that you shouldn't be dependent on no man for nothing. Because a lot of you men ain't doing shit. You didn't set no good example. And for the men that are putting in the work every day, keep going, bro. Keep putting in the work.
That Black women are the most masculine, right? Black women are the most angry, right? But I would ask you this: which race of women in America is most likely to have to worry about their sons, fathers, or husbands being unalived by police officers? Which race of women in America is pretty much told that their natural hair is not good enough and they have to straighten it, relax it, or wear other things in order to be considered professional, or even get the job in the first place? Which race of women experiences the most discrimination in the workplace and throughout the world? world, right, and throughout society, which race of women are told that their skin is too dark, their noses are too wide, their lips are too big? There's just a number of things, right? All black women. And then you wonder why we're strong and so masculine.
There's so much conversation going on about how black women are masculine, but it reminds me of an African proverb, which is, the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And I think that is actually what's happening with both black women and men, and it's simply a chain reaction. Let's talk about it. I have noticed that black men are forced into more toxic versions of masculinity than possibly some other races, and here's what I mean by that. If you are expected to be stronger and tougher and less emotional and not cry and bigger and all of these things than other races of men, you're kind of pushed into a hyper masculine, toxic state of being by society, right? And then what's going to happen, right? You're going to burn down the village, but the village you burn down is your home life and your personal relationships with black women. And then what happens? That toxic masculinity makes the black woman then burn down her own village in her own home, aka bring on the energy that she thinks is going to keep her safe, right? So I find it unfortunate that there's so much finger pointing between black women back and forth, because I really see it as a chain reaction. Because the greater society has rejected black men, they have burned down the villages they are a part of. And because black women are part of those same villages, we are now burning it down from our own perspective, right? And so I find that maybe we should embrace each other.
Iyanla was on the Breakfast Club and she was speaking about black women, masculinity, and the conversations around black women and masculinity. And she said, black women are men in skirts these days. Like, we're too aggressive, trying to take the place of men in a relationship, and we're removing men's ability to man.
I think it's a more well-rounded conversation that you have to have in terms of why there would be so many households that are being led by women and not men. And that's a discussion. But to then just be like, you know, black women are just men with skirts on, you're just cussing for cussing's sake.
We just don't need this rhetoric, isn't it? Like, you know, we can. Why is it if you're a successful woman? We say this all the time. If you're a successful woman, if you're an independent woman, if you're a woman who it matches her man on some sort of level, you are referred to as masculine. You know, you're trying to be a man, or you're not allowing a man to be a man. Well, what is a man? We can get into that as well. Like, what's the definition? What makes a man a man?
People complain about women being too masculine nowadays. But the funny part is that if I'm in a relationship and my man forgets to put his pants on, somebody has to put the pants on. I was forced to wear the pants because he forgot his. So a lot of women are being more into their masculine energy because a lot of men are forcing us to be in our masculine energy. They're not fulfilling their own masculine energy. Somebody has to pay the bills. And if he's not gonna man up, I'll man up to it. I feel like a woman will never be happy unless she is in her feminine energy. A woman that's tapped into her masculine is not happy, because that's not how a woman should be or feel. And the only way for a woman to tap into her femininity is when a man is a provider and a protector. When she feels safe and she feels like he's doing and she feels like he's giving, that's the only time she can remove her powerful cape and leave everything outside and just come home to a man and be a little girl. But sadly, that doesn't happen anymore.
This idea, this false notion that femininity is ornamental and not purposeful, I'm not actually sure where that came from, because even in the Bible, women have had purpose, and you will see many, many successful women in the Bible.
Hey, black women, have you noticed how people always project that you are masculine? Have you noticed that stereotype? Let me tell you something. You are not masculine. You are not the masculine woman stereotype. It's actually women from Europe, white women, like Olga and Helga, who does massages a little bit too hard. The ones who are pro wrestlers, the big ones. And in fact, it ain't even you who's known to be violent. You usually just you actually usually just respond to it. So I want you to understand something, right? That's called projection. When people start saying things about you that's not true repeatedly, as if they just want you to accept it because they said it a lot, That's called projection.
I often see commentary earnestly warning women, especially black women, to never engage in acts that are traditionally masculinized, like propose to a man or pay on first dates. And it's a convoluted topic I navigate existing as a gender fluid black femme who hates gendered roles, and these are my feelings on it. Many black women experience genderless relationships to a certain degree because their friend or partner is actively disrespecting their black womanhood, so they feel like they must turn to hyperfemininity and strict gender roles to garner said respect. A lot of people didn't perceive me as genderless, but rather felt even more inclined to treat me, like Bell Hooks says, as a masculinized subhuman under the guise of appreciation for my gender identity, even in queer spaces. This put me in a position to question if somehow I was still being misgendered when people would treat me as non-woman. For example, if a man who was aware of my gender identity opened a door for non-black femme presenting people but let it shut on me, was he doing so out of respect for my gender identity, or was he still perceiving me as a black woman he wanted to disrespect and engaging in misogynoir? These are the questions we have to ask ourselves.
The only reason that you are in your masculine as a woman is because you're scared. Is because you're scared to fully trust. Because at some point in time, your father, your brother, your uncle, a stranger, even your mother violated that trust that you had as a little girl. And you see, and this is where we really start getting to the nitty gritty of what healing really is. Both for a man and for a woman, by the way. And when you can finally get into that space where you are able to connect to yourself and you're able to say, oh my God, like there's something this guy is saying, there's truth in it. It may not be what I've been told, it may not be what I grew up believing, but speaks to me. But damn it, it's speaking to me. Then you get to go on that journey. And then from that journey, I'm going to tell you straight out, you'll no longer need to ask the question, how do you determine? Because you'll know, you'll be in your spiritual power, and human beings will walk into your life and you will be so connected to your soul's power that you'll be able to feel. You can feel energy, and you feel what's safe and what's not safe. You feel what is true and what is not true, and that's what happens when you can fully disconnect from the system.
Sticks to raise a family. We've already heard a lot. My little thinking that I can add here as a married person, I can say that as women, we always want to have men around who are physically, emotionally, financially, and they're there, you know, they're there. It doesn't matter the amount of money you make, but just be there and feel in all those things that I've just numbered there. And when one of those is missing, that's when you find that we find our own shelter. We find a way of covering ourselves. We become you in us, you know, we become everything. And yeah, there's a lot. There's also something not to confuse here. There's a difference between being feminine and working, you know. Being feminine doesn't mean that women should just stay home and not be productive, and no, it doesn't mean that, but it's a shared responsibility. So it's a shared responsibility. And that's what I want to say. And that's my thought on this. I appreciate it. Leave your thought in the comment section. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, turn on the bell. Goodbye for now. I appreciate your love and support for my content. Thank you. Ciao.